This is Bryan DeVore and Jami Shapiro with Senior Savers, and we're honored today to be with Scott Pirrello. And Scott Pirrello is the Deputy District Attorney in the County of San Diego. He's specifically in charge of elder abuse and elder abuse scans. Thank you very much for joining us, Scott.
My pleasure. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Great. So we wanted to talk to you about some of the latest scams that are going on out there, because in the work that Jami and I do, we encounter situations where people are taken advantage of. So we'd love to know what are the current scams that are going on and what people can do if they hear of those things.
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me here. This is such a great opportunity because these scams really are running rampant, and they're targeting our elder, most vulnerable members of our community here. Some of the most recent scams, there's actually a national news story within the last week of a Social Security scam that's happening right now. Wow. They've got an increase, 100% with 300% increase from the year before on a particular scam where people are getting a robocall, an automated voice saying they're from the Social Security Department, and they are telling the seniors that their Social Security number is actually going to be canceled.
Oh my gosh.
And they're telling them that they need to get the money to them immediately to prevent this from happening, that their literal Social Security number will be erased. Mm-hmm. They're using fear, and they're using tactics to seize the moment. They are directing the seniors to get the money, which is a very important part of the scam, how they're delivering the money. But the trick for them is to not let the senior off the phone. They will stay on the phone, have the senior drive to a business where they're going to get the money. They will even send a taxi. Even though these people are from overseas, they will send a taxi or an Uber to pick up a victim to drive them. Now, the key to how they're sending the money, these are the real key points because it's very cutting edge. And this is the message we need to get out to the community because you're not hearing how the money is being sent.
Right.
They're right on the cutting edge of law enforcement and technology. Two things, gift cards and Bitcoin cryptocurrency. That's how the scammers are getting money.
So
We actually had a client that was, when we were helping him, actually the catalyst for the whole reason we decided to do Senior Savers was telling us about how his granddaughter had called and had asked for money for bail in the form of Target cards. And, you know, what we're finding and why we're so, pro senior communities in some situations is people are isolated and they're looking for love and affection. And again, people can reach out and can kind of pick a name until, oh yes, it's right.
Yeah, and so unfortunately, people are they're susceptible, they'll grasp onto anything. So, all right, so with that particular scam, what are they asking for? How much in denominations, how much money are they asking for?
Right, so it's some of the losses that are being reported are in the tens of thousands of dollars. So usually they will try to kind of test the waters, so to speak, with a victim, maybe ask for a few $100s. And then what they're doing, we're finding locally here in San Diego, as I read through police reports, typically once they have someone on the line, our campaign in San Diego County is Don't Get Hooked, because once they're on that line, they will keep going back to the well until it runs dry. So typically they will send them and say, I need $1,000 or $2,000. They will send them for gift cards. They'll send them to Walmart, to Home Depot. They're using iTunes cards. They're using these new online gaming cards. And all these cards are basically as good as cash. Once the victim provides that code, the serial number on the back of that card, using a telephone, they could pull all the cash off of those cards. And so they're telling them to go and send $2,000. So, for example, Walmart has a $500 denomination gift card. So they'll say, go get 4 $500 gift cards and send it to us. And then they'll tell the victim who's getting very frustrated that it didn't work. The transaction's not working for whatever reason. Please send another 2,000. Oh, it didn't work again. We had a victim right here in San Diego. An elderly gentleman had all his wits to him. These are not dementia or Alzheimer's patients. These are sharp people that are being manipulated by very sophisticated scammers. And he went to 5 separate businesses and sent $18,000 in $500 increments in dozens of gift cards. So once they have you on the line, they're not going to let you go until the victim snaps out of it and realizes that they've been scammed.
So if somebody's watching this, what message can we tell them? Either they're watching it and they have an adult parent, or they're watching themselves. What are questions to ask, or how do you know? Because I get calls all the time, and it sounds official, and thankfully I stop or I hang up and figured if it's important enough, it'll come another way. But how do they prevent this? How do they know what to do?
The only way to prevent it is to get this message out. That's why it's so important that you're doing this and sending this message out. And so the typical scams that we've heard of, whether it's the grandma scam, which you mentioned earlier, where a grandson or a granddaughter is calling from Mexico saying that they're in jail and they need bail money, or the IRS or the Social Security office is calling, threatening that there's some warrant that's going to kick in unless they pay. There's a call that goes around San Diego that the sheriff is saying that you didn't show up for jury duty, or that you have a traffic ticket, and all the scams are the same. You need to act now, or else a warrant's going to issue for your arrest, or you're going to be fined a great deal. And they're creating an urgency for the victims. The key for us all to know ourselves, or for our vulnerable family members, are these new methods in which the scammers are getting the money, so that you know the warning signs. If you are going to visit your grandmother in an assisted living facility and you walk into her house and you see a gift card sitting on the counter, that is a huge red flag. There's no legitimate entity anywhere that I'm aware of that will request you to go to a third-party business like Walmart, purchase a gift card, and then send a bunch of gift cards to someone, whether it's the IRS or the Social Security office.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't happen. So that's the warning sign. If someone just sees someone, even if you're out at Target and you see an elderly person at the self checkout counter, go up.
That's a great point.
You need to intervene. What we hear from our victims is that they were almost like in a trance. Yeah. They can't explain it, why they fell for it.
Because fear. They were motivated by fear.
That's exactly right.
And, you mentioned that these are people who are, not facing cognitive impairment. And I think about the people that are facing cognitive impairment, that are still at home, don't have anybody watching them. And, I wonder how much more susceptible they are to other scams that are out there. And
it's absolutely right that they are more susceptible, more vulnerable. I guess the hope would be by that point that maybe there's been an intervention where they don't have the access to their financial accounts. I think that's why the other category are so much more susceptible, because they still have, there's no power of attorney that's getting an alternate bank statement. So someone could write a check or go buy $15,000 in gift cards, and no one will know about it until it's too late.
So one of the telltale signs, like you said, red flags, is they're asking for gift cards. What can people look out for earlier in the conversation that might be a red flag that this is a scam?
Well, the number one thing that we tell when we go throughout the community and talk to our elder members of our community is the phone call. If you do not recognize the phone number that's calling you on your caller ID, do not answer the phone. The scammers are using, it's actually not that sophisticated. It's a very simple spoofing software, and I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. The most common software now shows that the phone number that's calling you appears to be your next door neighbor, because the first 3 digits of the phone number are actually the same as your cell phone. I don't know if you've noticed this.
No.
So they'll mirror the first 3 digits, not just the area code, the first 3 digits of your phone number, and then the last 4 are different. But these calls are coming from African countries, from the Caribbean, from Canada, from Asia. They're using software to spoof the phone number that shows up on your phone. So if the phone number isn't recognized by your caller ID, then do not answer the phone. If it's important, someone will leave a voicemail.
So you mentioned a neighbor. Does this mean that these calls are only coming from landlines, or are they also going to cell phones?
Well, they're mostly coming to cell phones now, I think, as people cut the cord, so to speak, and get away from their landline phones. So there's no doubt that these scammers are still checking demographics on traditional yellow pages. They know who is over 65. They know those metrics, but now they're using cell phone data, and all of our cell phones numbers are available. That do not call list from many years ago that a lot of people thought was going to protect them the system can't keep up with,
Right.
with these scammers.
My thought was just that seniors are more likely to have a landline because they haven't, progressed in technology, and so maybe the scammers were, calling just the landlines.
You're absolutely right. We do find that, and so for another tip for us, for our generation, is to make sure our parents and our grandparents have a phone, even if it's a landline phone, that has a caller ID feature on it. You cannot have a phone that does not have a caller ID feature on it, because my phone rings. I'm the deputy district attorney in charge of trying to prosecute these scams, and I have maybe a dozen phone calls a day from all over the country. And yeah, you're tempted to pick up the phone, but you can't pick it up and give them an opportunity.
So, to quick review, if it's a phone number you don't recognize, that's probably a scam, or it could be a scam. If they're asking for gift cards and things like that, that could definitely be a scam. What are, in addition to the scam that you mentioned, what other types of scams are you seeing out there that people should be, that sounds like what I just saw on this Senior Savers thing?
Right. So I'm glad you asked. The most prevalent scam right now in San Diego County is the IT scam, information technology. This is a call that you might recognize yourself. It's someone calling you asking if your laptop or computer is running slowly. Or they're calling and saying, hi, this is Dell or Microsoft, and we are actually monitoring your computer. You're being hacked. Again, they're creating an urgency.
Sure.
And so, and then what the scammers are doing is very sophisticated. They're offering to fix your problem, your laptop's running slow, for a very low fee, a reasonable fee, maybe $75, $100, and they're trying to get the payment from that through an online bank transfer. And so what they will offer to their victim is to get the IP address of their computer so that they can remotely access the victim's computer from anywhere in the world and supposedly fix it, right? And also to get this financial transaction to pay for it. So once they have the IP address and they get the victim to bring their online banking up to make the $120 payment, then they're in. And we've seen actually a real sophisticated scam, which is happening very commonly, and it's resulting in significant losses, is that the scammer will say that they are trying to return the $120 to the victim's account. And then they'll say, oh no, I added an extra zero. And the victim will see $12,000 come into their account in their online banking, and then they're asked to refund that. But really what the scammer has done is transfer $12,000 from the victim's own savings account into their checking account. But when they're looking at the screen on their computer, it looks like the scammer just accidentally deposited $12,000. So they're very sophisticated, and here they send the victim running to the bank, and they're actually very good. They'll even offer the victim, say, I can't believe I made this mistake. I'm so sorry. Why don't you keep $1,000? So only send me back $11,000. So then get someone excited. They're actually going to make $1,000, and they're going to get this nice person on the other end of the phone the money back for this, supposed mistake. And they're transferring $11,000, $12,000, $18,000. We see it very routinely here, all over San Diego County, and they're using this IT scam. Mm-hmm. The other IT scam would be the thing where they say, oh, look, your screen is getting hacked. And I've never seen this, but we're told by the victims that they'll actually have a program pop up on the person's computer screen, and there's lines and bar graphs going up and down, and they're saying, look, you're being hacked right now. Hurry, give us $2,000 and we could save you, or else you're going to be hacked. So very sophisticated scams.
I know that people, and I've had this happen before, where the IRS calls, right? Mm-hmm. And you owe this much money, or you're being, whatever the situation is. But I know the IRS never makes phone calls. So it sounds like if someone gets a call from the IRS, from Social Security, these entities, that's a pretty good sign. Okay, this is not real.
Mm-hmm. Hang up the phone.
Right.
The IRS, the Social Security Administration, the San Diego Sheriff, the San Diego Police Department, they are never going to call you and ask you for money. Never.
That's an important message to get out.
They'll send mail.
Right.
They'll send mail and an official notice.
And how do you know that it's an official notice? Because when I trademarked my company, I got something that was a scam, and I've never trademarked before. And
it looks official because it's got a seal of looks like a government entity.
It really does.
You still owe us this much money.
Right. And a tip on those things is, suppose you get a letter that says you owe the IRS some money, call this phone number. A good tip is to not call the phone number that's on the piece of paper. Go on to Google and Google the official phone number for the IRS in San Diego. Call that office directly and see if there's an actual case or an actual complaint number or something like that.
Good.
Same thing if you get a message from your bank that you need to call them, or if you get an email that says to enter your account information. Never do that. Look up the actual official 800 number for that bank. Call them directly and say, did you send me some notification?
Wow, that's good. So pretty much government correspondence isn't going to come by the phone, and if you get it by mail, then you should actually call that office directly. So one of the things that we've run across in helping a client last year, I think, was we were going to be closing on her home, and we noticed that she had was it a mechanic's lien on the house, or
It was a PACE loan that she had to put on her property taxes because of a paint job she had done. And the paint job was $12,000. Well, there's no way the paint job should have been $12,000. So obviously it was a scam. Someone had come to her door and said, we can offer to do this job for you, and you won't have to pay us because it'll be put on your property taxes. So what are some of the things that you're seeing that are similar like that?
Yes, so these are different than the international scams that we've been talking about, because these cases are actually prosecutable. We can identify a defendant that's operating here in San Diego County, and our office is very successful in these prosecutions. They're really occurring two different ways, very common here throughout the county, all different parts of the county. There's construction scams, and then there's car dent scams, which are targeting elderly people. The construction scams, which you've mentioned, are very common, and it usually involves either a knock on the door that says, I could see your roof is cracked, or your driveway needs paving, and the scam's always the same. You get some money from an elderly victim up front, and you never complete the work. The other one you mentioned, which is taking advantage of the PACE program, which is well intended. It's a great program. However, it's so ripe for fraud and manipulation because the elder victim is typically shown documentation that they could pay for these improvements, and they lay the money out ahead of time. Or, as you said, they're getting a tax bill that they had no idea they were signing up for at the end of the year, and their tax liability has increased by $75,000. So the bottom line is, if someone knocks on your door, never go with them, the first person that knocked on your door. If you actually believe you need work done, you want to bring in 2 or 3 people, get estimates, research them. There's an incredible agency here that's not well known in California. They're called the Contractors State Licensing Board, CSLB. And you could just Google them, you go to their website. You could actually look up a contractor, verify that they're a licensed contractor. Never get any work done unless you have a licensed contractor, and you could verify that. You could see a history of their complaints, if there are any. And if you do have any work done at your house that you suspect someone in your house or in your family has been overcharged or taken advantage of, go online. There's an online complaint form that you could submit a complaint to the Contractor State Licensing Board. They have peace officers, detectives that work for them that will investigate these. They have subject matter experts. So they'll bring a roofing expert out and look at the roof and say, clearly this was, not done properly, and it was $10,000 overcharged. We've been very successful in prosecuting these cases, and we need to send a message to anyone, handymen or contractors, that are going to take advantage of elderly people. They will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. These are not civil cases. That's what they think. Oh, someone's going to take me to small claims court. No, we will prosecute them. The other important scam that a lot of our elderly citizens are falling victim to, it's very important to get out, is this car dent scam. There's a group of people here, and they're usually operating in small groups that will approach elderly people in supermarket parking lots, mostly in more affluent areas. They're in all corners of our county, from down at San Ysidro up to Rancho Bernardo, Encinitas, Del Mar. and they'll go up to an elderly person, usually in the handicap parking space, and say, you know, there's some dent on your car, I could fix this for you for a few $1,000s. And what they're trying to do most of the time is to say, you know, it's so hot, I'll follow you back to your house and I'll do the repair in your driveway or your garage. And once they get the elderly victim home, they usually either don't do anything to the car at all and charge a few $1,000s, or they will literally use paint. I mean, we see a dent. It wasn't even a dent to begin with, but we see, Bondo or something put on a car. It's so obviously shoddy work, and then they charge a great deal. And they'll do the same thing that some of these other scammers do. Once they have you on the hook, they'll go back the next day and say, hi, remember me? I'm going to fix the other side of your car. And they get another few $1,000s. We just had a case where a victim paid up to $60,000. They just kept going back to the well.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for coming and talking to us about some of the scams that are out there, some of the things to look for, and there's probably going to be even more 6 months from now or a year from now. These guys, they keep coming up with ways to do this. So if that's the case, people need to be alert and aware, and if they suspect that something's going on, what's a good place for them to visit or call?
Okay. If someone has just been scammed, for example, in the case I just talked about with a contractor or the car dent scam, and this just happened like yesterday or the day before, call the police. You must make a police report. So if there's a crime that you think has just happened, always report it to whatever local police jurisdiction is there. If you suspect that someone in your family may be a victim, or you see your neighbor talking to someone, or you see the gift cards around, report it to Adult Protective Services. There's a hotline, 1-800-510-2020. They're an amazing agency here, our partner in the San Diego County, and you need to report it to them, and they will take a first look at things. If they think there's something that warrants intervention, they will contact law enforcement. They'll reach out to the district attorney's office. So you want to absolutely report these things. The other part of this is that we all need to do a better job here in the county and abroad in reducing the stigma. The victims are not reporting this. They're humiliated that they have fallen victim to this. They don't want to tell their adult children that they have sent all this money away. They're embarrassed. They're afraid that it might signal that they can't be independent anymore. Right. So we need to get the message out that these scammers are sophisticated. It's not their fault, the victims, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Let's talk about it and get it out in the open.
You brought up a great point, and what I find is that a lot of seniors, speaking of pride, don't want their adult children to know their financial situation in general, and I think it would be sometimes a good idea to go ahead and have an adult child on an account so they can watch what's going on. Is that part of what the message is? And I feel like that may help. I mean, I know a friend personally whose mother has given thousands to the Publishers Clearinghouse. And, at least if there were another set of eyes, or a program like Silver Bills. Have you heard of Silver Bills?
I don't, but I know some others that are out there.
That would be good to, don't you think?
It's a great idea if you have someone in your family that you trust. Unfortunately, some people take that for granted because it's sad. Obviously, we prosecute a lot of children and grandchildren.
I forgot that.
But yes, if you have a family member that you trust, it's a great idea. You don't even necessarily need to give them access to your full banking profile, but you could just set up an alert, for example, that they get a text message if there's a transaction over $500. Or like I did with my own grandmother, I just would have access to her online banking, and I would glance once a month just to see the transactions, to see if anything was from out of state or anything of some suspicious amount. So absolutely, it's always good to have an extra set of eyes on things.
I was going to say, I actually have a bookkeeper, and she can just view. I can give her a view-only way to look at online, and she can't move any money or do anything. So that's another good thing to know about.
All right. Scott, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Wow.
And hopefully we don't have to talk much more, but unfortunately I think we will.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Wow.